Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Today's lesson is we're continuing to subtract fractions using the area model, but we're going to add something to it called regrouping. Okay, so what is regrouping? Regrouping is just when you change your groups. So you've probably been regrouping since maybe second grade when you were adding or subtracting. So regrouping in basic adding might be if I had 14 plus 8. I have 4 plus 8 ones, which is too many ones. So I put 2 ones here and I carry 1 over and make it a 10. That's called regrouping. So we're going to be regrouping now, but a little bit more sophisticated. Okay, there really are no new notes because today's lesson is very similar to last night's lesson. Okay, so you can refer to last night's lesson. Okay, our steps are also the same. So I'm going to go through them a little bit quickly. So we're going to draw and shade both fractions. Make sure one is horizontal and one is vertical. That's a must. Then we add lines to make our models match. This is kind of the visual way of finding the common denominators. So when we use algorithms, we find common denominators. When we use area models, we add lines to make models match. Then we're going to subtract by crossing off. And this one's going to be really important that you follow this. You always start with your fraction. Always start with your fraction. And then our new thing that we added is we're going to regroup if necessary. So those two things are going to be really, really important. Is always start with your fraction and regroup if necessary. Okay, then we're going to write our answer and we're going to simplify using the GCF. And in last night's video we talked about you could list out factors to find the GCF, or we said you could count backwards and find the GCF in your head. It's whatever you feel works best for you. Okay, so what does this really look like? Okay, here is my first problem. Andrew ran 2 1/2 miles. Linda ran 1 3/4 miles. How much farther did Andrew run than Linda? So here's my how much farther. Okay, that kind of tells me this is my subtraction problem. Okay, so I'm going to go back to my steps and I'm going to check what do I do first. Step 1 says I'm going to draw and shade both fractions, making sure one is horizontal and one is vertical. Okay, so my actual equation or expression here is 2 1/2 minus 1 3/4. So I'm going to draw 2 1/2. So I have 2 wholes and I have 1/2. Okay. And I'm going to take away 1 whole and 3/4. Okay, my fraction was vertical, so now it has to be horizontal. So I'm going to take away 1 3/4. Okay, so that's my step 1. Step 2 is I'm going to add lines to make the models match. Okay, so this fraction is missing its 1, 2, 3 vertical lines. 1, 2, 3. And this fraction's missing the 3 horizontal lines. I apologize. This one's missing the 1 vertical line. So now they match. Okay, this is where we're getting a little tricky and something new. Subtract by crossing off, always start with your fraction and regroup if necessary. So always start with my fraction. Okay, so I have this and they want me to take away this. So they want me to take away 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pieces or parts. So I come over here and I take away 1, 2, 3, 4. Yikes. I needed to take away 6, but I only took away 4, which means I still need to take away 2 more. So I need to cut up one of my wholes. This is where I'm going to regroup. How many pieces does it need to be cut up into? Just like this, 8. So I need to cut up one of my wholes so I can take away the others. So total, they wanted me to take away 6 pieces. So now I really took away 6 pieces. That's the regrouping. So you might have to cut up your wholes to finish taking them away. Okay, they also want me to take away 1 whole. So they say take away 1 whole. So come over here and take away 1 whole. So what, okay, so what is I'm left with is my answer. It says to write my answer. Well, I'm left with no wholes, but I'm left with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pieces out of the total 8. So that's my answer. And now I'm going to simplify using either listing out my factors or checking factors in my head. I like to use the in my head method, so I'm going to ask, is 6 the GCF? Well, 6 fits into here, but not here perfectly. Is 5 the GCF? Nope. 4? No. 3 fits into 6, but not to 8. 2, yep, fits into 6 and 8. So I know my GCF's 2. So 6/8 is equal to 3/4. And that is my answer. Okay, so let's try another one. Okay, this one says 3 take away 1 3/5. So I'm just gonna rewrite it because you know I like them written this way. So 3 take away 1 3/5. Okay, so I'm gonna look at my steps. Step 1 says draw and shade both, making sure one's horizontal and one's vertical. Okay, so I have 1, 2, 3 holes, and I have all of them. And I'm going to shade them. I think using a highlighter works fastest. Take away 1 hole and 3/5. Well, on this one I didn't cut it up anyway, so it doesn't matter how I'm going to cut this one up. So I'm going to take away 1 3/5. Okay, that's step 1. This is a little bit weird now. Step 2 says add lines to make models match. Well, I really don't need to make them match because I only have holes and then I have a fraction here but not a fraction here. So there's no fractions to make match. Okay, so now let's go on to step 3. I'm going to subtract by crossing off, always start with my fraction and regroup if necessary. So they want me to take away 1, 2, 3 pieces. So I come over here and there's no pieces to take away, which means I need to regroup. I need to cut up one of these into to make it, I need to cut up one of them so I can take away the 3 pieces they wanted me to. So now it says take away 3 pieces, so I took them away. Take away 1 whole. So let's take away the 1 whole. And that is what step 3 would look like. Okay, so now what do I do? My next step says write my answer. What am I left with? I'm left with 1 whole and 2 pieces out of the 5 pieces. Okay, my next step says simplify using GCF. So I'm going to check in my head. Is 2 my GCF? Does 2 fit into 2? Yep. But does it fit into 5? Nope. And then 1 does, but 1 doesn't help, which means that is my answer. Okay, let's try some of these together. Okay, my first one is just like the one I just did with you. My problem is 2 take away 1/3. So we're going to first draw and shade them. So I have 2 holes. And I'm going to take away 1/3. So they cut it into 3 pieces and I only have 1 of them. Okay, my next step says I'm gonna make them match, but there's really nothing here to make match because I have holes and I have fractions. When I make things match, I'm making my fractions match. Okay, so I can kind of skip that. Next it says I'm gonna subtract, and I always start with the fraction, and I might need to regroup. So they want me to take away 1 piece, 1/3. Well, I come over here and there's nothing cut up, so I need to cut it up and take away 1 of them. So they said take away 1, so I took away 1. There's no holes they want me to take away. So I'm kind of done, except now I need to write my answer. Well, what am I left with? 1 hole and 2, 1, 2 out of the 3 pieces. And then I can check to see if I can simplify it. Well, 2 is not my GCF because it doesn't fit into 3, and then 1 doesn't work. So my answer is 1 2/3. Okay, let's try a little bit more complicated one. Okay, my next one says, Olivia has 3 1/4 cups of flour to make cookies. How much flour does she used 2 1/2 cups of, she used 2 1/2 cups to make cookies. Whew, I messed that up a lot. How much flour does she have left? Okay, so let's see what we have going on here. First, we're gonna draw and shade. So I have 3 1/4. So let's cut that into fourths. So I have 3 1/4 cups of flour. And I'm going to take away 2 1/2. And remember, 1 has to be vertical and 1 has to be horizontal. So I'm going to take away 2 1/2. Okay, my next step is we're going to make them match. When we say make them match, we mean our fractions. So these 2 need to match. So this one is missing my 1, 2, 3 vertical lines, and this one's missing my 1 horizontal. Okay, so I have this and I'm taking away this. Okay, so remember when I subtract, I always do my fraction first, and I might need to regroup. So they want me to take away 1, 2, 3, 4 pieces. So I come over here and I go to take them away, and there's not enough. So I need to cut up another one into the same amount of pieces. Okay, so I need to take away 4. I only took away 2, so let's take away 2 more. Okay, so now I take 4 pieces away. I did it. They also want me to take away 1, 2. So let's take away 2. Okay, what are we left with then? We are left with no holes, but we're left with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pieces out of the 8. So that's step 4, my answer. And my next step is to simplify. Well, is 6 my GCF? Well, 6 fits into 6, but it doesn't fit into 8. 5, nope. 4, nope. 3, yes for 6, but no for 8. 2, yes for 6, and yes for 8. So I'm going to divide them both by 2, and I get 3/4. And that is my answer. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, you have 2 problems, and then rate yourself, and we will practice this in a couple days. Have a nice night.